It's been about a week or two since I saw Across the Spider-Verse in theaters, and I don't really think it's any surprise what I thought about it. Go watch any of the reviews of this movie on YouTube to understand that it is a masterpiece of filmmaking. Every frame has been lovingly crafted to perfection as the animation flows perfectly throughout the movie's entire runtime. The music intertwines seamlessly with every scene, and the voice acting is just the cherry on top of it all. And since then, I even wrote up an entire script on Across the Spider-Verse about how I thought it was more than a movie, touching on the characters, the plot, and how genius of a villain I thought Spot was. But I never ended up actually voicing the script, partly because I didn't think it was good enough. I wanted to talk more about this movie than what was just on the surface level, and I wanted to express how deeply this movie hits you, more so than any other movie I've seen throughout the past decade. And one of its core messages that I feel is masterfully intertwined that I think a lot of people don't really think about. To talk about Across the Spider-Verse's core message, I first want to take a look back at Into the Spider-Verse and its core themes. You see, Into the Spider-Verse was more a movie about Miles finding himself, so to speak. He's this confused teenager who has a loving relationship with his parents, albeit a bit strained because of how much his parents expect from him. He's going to this new school and he just doesn't fit in, but he's not allowed to switch as his parents know that this is Miles' best opportunity for good schooling. And what's Miles' best solution to all these mounting problems? To run away. This continues to be his answer not just to his real-world problems, but also his problems as his alternate identity Spider-Man, until one of the greatest scenes in cinema history happens, his leap of faith. I highly recommend watching this video as I think it does a great job explaining the core theme of Into the Spider-Verse and how it's so applicable to our everyday lives. Miles finds himself in that moment and decides to face life head-on from that day forward, instead of running away from his problems. He comes into his own both as Spider-Man and as Miles Morales, excelling in both aspects of his life now that he's matured and realized who he really is. And Across the Spider-Verse, these are problems that don't need to be addressed because they've already been addressed. And this growth is even reflected in his physical appearance. I don't know if you all noticed, but Miles looking kinda big in this new sequel, man, versus what he looks like in Into the Spider-Verse. He looks like a baby in comparison. While still a teenager, he's had the weight of having to balance being Spider-Man and being a normal high schooler for about a year now, since he was 14 in Into the Spider-Verse and now confirmed to be 15 in Across the Spider-Verse. You can see it in how easily he disposes of Spot in their first encounter, a villain that most definitely would have given him heaps of trouble in Into the Spider-Verse. But I still think that Across the Spider-Verse is a movie about identity, just in a different way. While the first movie was about Miles finding himself and coming into his own as both Miles Morales and Spider-Man, I think Across the Spider-Verse is more about belonging. It's a subtle difference that is really nuanced that I feel is really easy to miss, just because knowing who you really are in life and where you belong means different things for each and every person. One of the key plot points in Across the Spider-Verse's plot is this idea of canon events. These are things that are fated to happen in each and every Spider-Person's universe. Things like Uncle Ben dying or being bitten by the radioactive spider to give each person their respective spider powers. And in Miles' case, he realizes that the canon event that's bound to happen in his universe is going to result in his father's death. But if he saves him, he may be dooming his entire universe to destruction, as Miguel tells him exactly what will happen if he saves his father. Miguel is of the opinion that one life isn't worth the lives of everyone within his universe, and that he can't save everyone. And yet Miles delivers a response truly worthy of the name Spider-Man. Isn't that what Spider-Man is meant to do all along? Spider-Man is the one that does the impossible. He finds a way to save everyone without being misguided by the notion that one life is insignificant in the face of 1,000 others. At the end of the day, not only is one of Across the Spider-Verse's core themes a question of ethics, it's also a question of staying true to the ideals and path you've chosen for yourself. If Miles gave up on saving his father, regardless of the outcome, could he really call himself Spider-Man? And so almost all variants of the Spider-Verse end up going after Miles, attempting to stop him from seemingly making a big mistake. And during this encounter, yet another plot twist is set in motion. As Miguel has Miles on the ropes, he reveals that Miles was never meant to become Spider-Man in the first place. Peter Parker and his universe wouldn't have died, Spot would have never been created, and there's a universe out there that's missing a Spider-Man because the spider didn't bite the right person. All these colossal problems they're facing now wouldn't exist if he just didn't exist as Spider-Man. He doesn't belong here, and not only did Miguel know it, the worst part is, his friends did too. And yet, knowing all this, Miles still decides to fight to save his father. He fights against all the other Spider-Men in the known multiverse for that fight. And in a way, I think this is so weirdly ironic. In the first movie, the other Spider-Men that come to Miles' universe serve as a sort of guidepost for Miles. He doesn't really know what he's doing in life, not as Miles nor as Spider-Man. He's just kind of winging it, and when he gets his powers, he tries to imitate them in the hopes of becoming great like they are. He looks up to them, but he fails and fails and fails, until he realizes that you don't become Spider-Man by trying to imitate what others are doing, but rather by finding that greatness in your own way and style. Can you fit into the suit properly? In the sequel, Miles no longer has to use the other Spider-Man as a guidepost. He's his own Spider-Man, and with his decision to save his father, he is completely alone in a world full of people that are supposed to be just like him. This idea of belonging is not just touched on during this huge plot point, but also during Miles' conversation with his mother. On first viewing, it feels like a touching enough scene, a mother making sure that her child feels loved and knows that she cares about him. But when you think about it, this is the last time Miles sees his mother before going off on his grand adventure that ends somewhere he doesn't belong. And her words to him during this moment, with that in mind, hit a whole lot harder.
For years I've been taking care of this little boy, right? Making sure he is loved, that he feels like he belongs wherever he wants to be. He wants to go out into the world and do great big things. And what I worry about most is they won't look out for you like us. They won't root for you like us. Wherever you go from here, you have to promise to take care of that little boy for me. Make sure he never forgets where he came from. And he never doubts that he is loved. And he never lets anyone at those big fancy places he's gonna be in tell him that he doesn't belong there. And when he comes home, and he better come home, you're gonna be early, and you're gonna be holding a normal, nice cake.
Yeah, okay.
You gotta promise, Miles.
I promise.
By this point during the movie, she knows he's hiding something from both her and her husband. That something is what Miles almost gets off his chest before he once again decides not to tell her that he's Spider-Man. But Mom always knows what's best and tells him exactly what he needs to hear, even when he doesn't tell her the whole entire truth. Miles, clearly in this moment, is taken aback by how serious his mother is being. I mean, really, what's brought this on all of a sudden? But I think this conversation is going to come full circle with the third movie, and I hope Miles does get back to his dimension early and on time, and where he belongs, with that normal-looking cake she asked for. But his mom's not the only person he had that heartfelt conversation about belonging with. He had it with his father too, and his father knows that Miles is lying to him. But Miles is just afraid to tell his father the truth because of how he'll react. He's afraid that the truth will change things between him and his father, and that feeling is clearly warranted. The beauty of Across the Spider-Verse is that it's not just Miles that's going through this sense of not belonging anywhere. You see, Gwen has first-hand experience with this too. She's in a band where she feels she doesn't belong, just kind of coasting through life, and her problems all come to a head when Gwen tells her father, or rather was forced to, that she's Spider-Man. It all blew up in her face, and Gwen felt like it was a mistake. She feels like she doesn't belong in her own universe anymore, with her father refusing to listen to her story and attempting to arrest her for the death of her friend Peter Parker. And so, Gwen feels like her only course of action is to go with Miguel and Jessica because she feels more at home there than with her own father. That is, until even Miguel sends her back home for failing to stop Miles, and she's right back where she started. But that's when she has a genuine heart-to-heart with her dad and realizes that canon events can be changed, and goes back to help Miles save his father, which ties us into the third movie, Beyond the Spider-Verse. So yeah, in summation, I love this movie. I think it's a story that really hit me hard as I struggle to find that place where I belong in this world. And I think so many people can relate to that struggle, and that's probably why this movie hit me harder than I thought a piece of entertainment media ever could. With that, I hope you guys can resonate with this story just as much as I could, and use it to empower yourselves and realize that being yourself and staying true to what you believe in, even in the face of adversity, like Miles did, is all you need to do to find your place in this world.
I never thought I'd be able to do any of this stuff, but I can. Anyone can wear the mask. You could wear the mask. If you didn't know that before, I hope you do now. 'Cause I'm Spider-Man, and I'm not the only one.